So I think it's safe to say you guys enjoyed me using the world's most advanced AI to simulate my own world battle. I've had so many different comments and suggestions on how to make it better. It's really cool. Today I'm going to see if I can push ChatGPT even further. OpenAI also released a whole new update, so this is probably going to play out way more different. The year is 2023, the Great Divide War between Canada and the United States. And already this seems more in-depth. It was over the territory of Alaska. Now, Alaska is already a part of the USA, but for some reason, the Canadians fabricated a claim that they owned it. Of course, the US won, annexing their already annexed territory. But what's cool about ChatGPT is we can dive a little bit further and ask the AI exactly what happened. Yes, the United States won with a decisive victory. All right. I mean, I'm not really surprised. Sorry, Canada. I like how the AI didn't give us any more information. They're just like, yeah, they beat the shit out of them. We're now entering 2024, the European campaign between the European Union and Russia over control over Eastern Europe. It's interesting that the AI chose to say the European Union and not NATO, because that means the UK, the US, and Canada weren't involved. Could that be because there was just a former war between these North American partners? Also, I'm now wondering if the European Union is now this like united country. I don't think it is, but let me ask. Wait a second. The North Atlantic Alliance formed between Canada, the United States, and the European Union. So they just reformed NATO after the war with Canada and the US? No, the European Union is a political and economic union of 27 member states that are located primarily in Europe. Okay, I wanted to see if something else had changed. So they've just formed an alliance to fight together. In 2025, the War for the Pacific Scramble. So it was a fight between Japan, China, and Australia for some random territories out here in the ocean, and ultimately Japan won. So say hello to their new stuff out here. We also have a new Latin American pact between Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. That is going to be a formidable force, I think, here in the Western Hemisphere for mutual protection and support. It's 2026, and now we have an African conflict between Egypt, South Africa, and Nigeria. South Africa won this war over resources, and they annexed Nigeria and Egypt. That must have been a mostly naval war because these countries are kind of far away. With Egypt and Nigeria out of the battle royale, South Africa becomes one of the major powers in the world. The Middle Eastern Showdown, man, I love these names, versus Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq, resulting in Saudi Arabia winning. Now, these annexations make a lot more sense because at least all this territory is connected. Man, look at this Arabic empire rising up out of this region. The South Asian conflict between India and Pakistan, of course. India has got back the Pakistan territory. They are one step closer to forming their Hindustan, possibly. The Eastern Bloc formed between China, Japan, and South Korea for mutual protection. That is a scary alliance. And now the war for Arctic dispute has begun. Now, in that conflict, it was Russia, Denmark, and Canada, obviously all for like the North Pole region. Unfortunately for the Canadians, though, they were the only ones annexed. Denmark was left alone by the Russians. We also can't forget that technically Russia doesn't look like this. They probably lost like all of this territory. I just can't like make that a specific thing. They'll probably get fully annexed, and that'll clean up a lot of the borders anyways. Also, this is a very scary team. Japan, South Korea, and China. The Latin American clash has begun between Argentina, Brazil, and Chile over resources. They were all in a team, and I guess that just fell apart. Classic South America. Funny, because I don't even need to change these colors. It's just that Brazil now completely owns these two countries. In this scenario, the Latin American pact fell apart due to the country's desire for resources and territory. Wow, they can't even work together. Despite forming the pact for mutual protection and support, their individual ambitions for expansion led to a conflict between them. As long as you explained it, that's what's cool. If it just completely forgot about that, I'd be a little upset. Come on now, ChatGPT. I decided to randomly ask it what is the European Union doing at this time. It responded with successfully defending itself against Russian aggression in the European campaign, so it does remember the war's name. They're not focused on consolidating their control over the annexed territories and strengthening their alliance with. They do remember the NATO pact as well. It's also possible the EU is working on maintaining peace and stability in Europe, as well as continuing economic cooperation and development. Watch them go to war in 2031. Oh, no, I don't think so. It's actually the Southern African struggle. South Africa has once again annexed more territory, this time Mozambique. They truly are becoming a powerhouse of Africa, and it appears that ChatGPT agrees. South Africa is the strongest in the continent. The Southeastern Asian confrontation between Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam over resources and territory. Classic Vietnam win here over Thailand and Indonesia. They're looking really big now. This is how crazy our world map looks so far. The Australian offensive between Australia and New Zealand over, of course, resources and territory. Australia wins. Australia needed a little bit of a dub since they lost those islands to Japan. The North American showdown between the United States and Mexico. Of course, the US won that as well. Remember that the Canadians were annexed by all of Russia, so things are getting scary up here. Well, especially with the US, maybe like getting a third of extra land. As Russia has annexed Canada in the Arctic dispute, they are now in control of the Canadian territories and resources. They may be working on consolidating their control over the annexed territories, extracting resources, and strengthening their presence in the Arctic region. I just wanted to know. Thank you, thank you. It's now 2035, another South American showdown between Brazil and Colombia, annexing resources. Brazil wins. wins. I gotta admit, in the southern hemisphere, it looks like Brazil is a lot stronger here in South America than South Africa is in Africa. That's just a hunch though. One of the coolest things about the last video was that they gave me a pretty nice population gauge. Brazil has a population of over 208 million. By annexing Argentina and Chile and Colombia, it's likely that the number of people living under the new Brazilian Empire would be significantly higher. Yes, I think you could say that easily. The combined population of Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Colombia is approximately 450 million almost. Of course, yes, this is a fictional scenario. I think it's the year like 2036, so it's probably maybe a little bit higher, maybe more closer to 500 million. The European crusade between the European Union and Russia. Result, Russia wins, completely annexing reverse card. Was not expecting that. So I guess I didn't need to give the European Union the Western Russian lands. So I believe I got all 27 countries. I might have missed one, but Russia has pretty much the entire control of the continent. Remember though, Switzerland and Norway, as well as the UK, are not a part of that, so they're still part of that NATO faction. Also, by annexing Denmark, they also got Greenland, which settles their Arctic Ocean conflict. They just before had Canada. So what is the USA gonna do now? Because that is a very scary Russia. In the previous simulation, it was China that was running away with it. Now it seems to be a little bit closer. It's now 2037. We have another Asian showdown between Japan, China, and Vietnam. That's the key one. Oh, there it is. China wins by completely annexing Japan and Vietnam. Now remember, Vietnam had Thailand and Indonesia, so they're getting all of this. South Korea is still on its own though, but okay, as soon as I said China's not doing anything, I think that maybe the AI heard, which is really scary. I don't want to think about that. In this scenario, Vietnam has annexed Indonesia and Thailand in the Southeast Asian conflict, so yes, China would be now in control of those territories. I just want to make sure the AI is keeping up. 2038, we have the final conflict between the remaining major powers, South Africa, India, Russia, Brazil, and China over complete stuff. China wins, completely annexing South Africa, India, Russia, and Brazil. Okay, that completely came out of nowhere. They all of a sudden got all of this, which includes that stuff. Wait, what? I actually think I forgot some micronations in the European Union, but I swear they must have heard. They must have heard me talking mess. The AI is saying that this concludes the Battle Royale simulation. What about the USA? I apologize for the confusion. The United States was not involved in the final conflict as it was previously annexed by Russia in the European Crusade. Oh, did that happen? I don't remember that. It would have been a part of the Russian Empire in this scenario. Oh yeah, I forgot to give China all of Brazil too, so they get all this. Somehow I think the US accidentally joined the European Union because it told me Russia only annexed the European Union, so they would have taken all of Mexico over as well since they would be in the European Union, and now China has all of this. I'm gonna ask the AI to set up the situation as China pretty much controls the entire world. What happens? In the following years, it would be assumed that China would be focused on consolidating its control over the newly annexed territories. They get resources. It's likely that China would try to integrate the annexed territories into its economy and society and possibly try to create a unified government over the territories. It may also try to establish a new world order with China as the dominant power. I think they already are. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I think they already are. It is also possible that there could be some form of resistance or rebellion from the annexed countries, but this is not specified in this scenario. It's important to note that this is a fictional scenario and it's not accurate representation of the current political situation in the world. The AI is also saying that it's possible that rebellions could occur in any of the annexed territories where people may not agree with the policies and rule of the Chinese government. Australia successfully rebelled from China and regained its independence. Oh, I didn't even think Australia was a part of the Chinese Empire, but alright, I already got that on the map. The rebellion could have been led by a diverse group of leaders such as political activists, military leaders, or community leaders. Russia also just got their independence as well, which I believe would probably be a pretty difficult thing to do considering how close Russia is to China. But then again, remember, most of the Russian population are all the way over here in the western side, whereas most Chinese population are along this coast here by the Pacific Ocean. So even though these two countries border each other, it might not be the most insane thing. And then it kind of makes sense because Russia was probably the second strongest great power in this scenario, so them rebelling with Australia, yeah, I could see that happening. It's difficult to say exactly how long the Chinese Empire would last before collapsing, as it depends on many factors such as internal stability, economic conditions, foreign relations, and the ability to maintain control over the annexed territories. Let's say for the sake of argument, the Chinese Empire lasts 50 years before complete collapse. It's just a random number, not based in actual analysis of current geopolitical, yeah, I know. So by 2085, the Chinese Empire has collapsed. That doesn't necessarily mean that all these countries gain their independence. What that could mean, however, is that there's now like different organizations that are like like still under certain fractured Chinese control. Maybe there's still a ruler of China in South America. Maybe certain people are still, you know how like when the Mongolian Empire fell, there was different khans that rose up for a time there. I'm sure China would still control some things nearby. Maybe they still control all of India, although I think the Himalayas would make that very difficult. Japan would maybe still under rule, and we know that the rebellions were successful in Russia. So with all this said, after years and years, almost a century later, probably what the map would look like. Let's say for the sake of argument that after the fall of China, the United States becomes the most powerful. This could happen if the United States had been able to maintain its military, economic, and political strength during the years of Chinese rule. Additionally, it could have also been able to maintain its alliances and its international influence. So maybe the USA still ended up coming out on top. I'm just glad for this scenario we actually had more of a clear winner. I guess we could say China won, but did they really? I'd like that we got some backstory afterwards. And big thank you to my patrons: Drew's Goth Girlfriend, Triv44, aka Drew, come to Krakow, Poland next vacation, Wicked Hamster, Drew's Argentinian Grandpa, $20 is a lot, Drew, Base Celine, B Wild, Brighton is Carmel, the best, DJ McSkillet, Orton 5610, Robert E, Rye the Polish Lithuanian, the Mexican 760, Viotic, and Zany Boy